Hi, Emily.
Hey,
Thank you for being willing to be with us today. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Thank you for your
no
patience.
worries.
We've been doing interviews with people in our church and community during this coronavirus pandemic to try to help everybody kind of get some on the ground news and experience about how this is going for folks. And you got a unique perspective because of what you do. So why don't you tell the people what you do?
I am a registered nurse in the medical intensive care unit at Georgetown University Hospital. So we have become a COVID ICU.
How long have you been an RN?
Not very long. I graduated school in May, passed my boards in June, and I started working in July. So not a year in, but crushing it, I guess.
Yeah.
Thrown on in. Yeah,
Yeah.
nice little initiation. So.
Yeah. So we'll want to hear more about how that's gone for you so far, but you're also connected to Grace. So can you tell us a little bit about how you found Grace and kind of what your church experience has been?
Yeah, so I have always lived in Manassas. I'm in the house that I grew up in. And when I was younger, my family went to a different church in Old Town. And then the situation changed. My parents got divorced. I started playing travel soccer. So that always happened on Sundays. And kind of stepped away from church for a while. And so Samantha Callie, the Callie family, is my best friend, has been my best friend, and they've always been very involved in Grace. Um, and so in middle school, I started going to youth group with Sam on Sundays, and that kind of continued up through high school. But that whole, I guess, our cohort, our grade, had already done confirmation and everything because I probably started in later middle school and they did that in sixth grade. So sometime, I was a junior in high school and I was like, hey, like, I think I want to get confirmed. So I did that with a group of sixth graders. And I've kind of just been here ever since.
It's crazy to be a 16-year-old going through confirmation with sixth graders.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's good.
Yeah, it was fun. Feels like a long time ago, but yeah, it
It's,
was
it's a
interesting.
while. It's a while ago. Yeah,
It, I, yeah, it
you're
was
not
fun.
old, but
I'm not old, but I'm not young. I'm not in high school anymore, even though I catch myself saying I'm 17 and I'm definitely not.
yeah. So, how are you feeling today? When was your last shift? When's your next shift?
I worked Sunday night, so I came home Monday morning, and I am not back until tomorrow night. So I have a little gap, and I'm teetering. I'm on nights this week. I rotate between days and nights, and I'm trying to decide. I mean, it's already too late. It's already Wednesday, but I was kind of trying to decide if I wanted to stay on the night shift schedule and like stay up late into the night and sleep more during the day this week, just so I didn't have to go too much back and forth. But I cannot stay up past 10 o'clock, no matter how hard I try, unless I'm working, and that's the struggle. So I'm just listening to my body, I guess. But
How are you? How are you feeling?
I feel I've kind of come to a point where people ask me how I'm doing, and I used to feel really guilty about saying like, "Oh, I'm hanging in there," you know. But then I kind of was like, "Man, I think I'm allowed to give myself some grace and not have to be like this, um, light consistently." So I'm hanging in there. I mean, I have days where I'm just very anxious, and I have days where I leave work and I'm like, okay, like if I had to do that again, I could, you know. But overall, thankfully, I'm healthy. My family's healthy. Um, and that's what matters the most to me. You know, my biggest fear is bringing something home, and there's only so much you can control of that. But kind of just taking things day by day, and today's a good day. So
Good.
what you have to do.
What's your shift like? What kind of work are you doing for the folks you're seeing in the ICU?
So I work, it's a 12-hour shift, either 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. or 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. And So I kind of started working in the ICU with the anticipation that I was going to be dealing with a lot of really sick people. So in a way, this is what I signed up for. But, a lot of people talk about we're on the front lines here, and I was talking about this with my coworker. We signed up to be in the ICU. We didn't, it's kind of like a shell shock that people consider, they say these things and we're very gracious and we're like, oh, like this is what we signed up to do. But we also didn't, if we wanted to be on the front line of something, I would have become a medic in the Army, something like that. I didn't choose this career to be immersed in this. So, and that's not, it's hard to say because you don't want to be up on your high horse like, oh, like I'm doing this great thing, when you really are going to work to do your job. But you do go to work and it's kind of like, this is intense, this is real, and this is partially what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be an ICU nurse, and these people are very sick, and I'm thankful I get to take care of them. But also it's like, man, like this is a real scary supply situation, coworkers getting sick situation that you don't think about when you're a new grad and joining, so
Yeah.
It's been okay. It's been busy, very busy.
Yeah. It sounds like it's what you signed up for to some degree, but it's even more than you signed up for,
Just
in
a
terms
big
of
bite.
what you could have
Yeah.
expected.
Yeah, like I don't think we saw it coming,
Yeah.
So there's no preparation, but I'm very thankful for where I work. I'm very thankful for the people I work with. And, we have nurses coming to us from other units that are not intensive care nurses. They're just trained, like intermediate care nurses or post anesthesia nurses, who are coming, and I'm thankful that we have them to come be bodies with us. But I feel so much for them because they didn't sign up to be an ICU nurse, and they're kind of being pulled into that. And so, I'm like thankful that I started where I did because I have the support and the experience without being like pulled from my home unit to go do something else. Those are the people that I'm like, I couldn't imagine that, but
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Is your unit full?
So, my particular unit, the protocol like changes every day, what we're doing really. We've bounced a lot around of what, if we're going to be a COVID ICU, if we're going to not be a COVID ICU. My facility does a lot of transplants, so we need to have a designated non-COVID area for these very sick people.
Yeah.
So what we kind of did is each ICU that we have, we kind of broke into, and so there's a COVID medical ICU and a non-COVID medical ICU, a COVID neuro ICU, So at first, we were just having like 5 nurses on our unit when we separated from being a non-COVID ICU or a COVID ICU, because we didn't have that many patients. But within the last week, we still have like our same normal census. So we're filling up. I think we are kind of following the trend that it's definitely moving its way down from New York to us. And it changes weekly. The board changes daily, but we are not full, but we are like, we're not max capacity, but we're certainly, our census is not low. So.
And so are you yourself seeing patients that have tested positive?
Yeah. So we are only taking intensive care patients that are either rule out, like they're called PUIs, patients under investigation, or have tested positive. So any non-COVID patient is not going to be with us. You're only with us if you are positive. So, and everyone has been coming back positive. So I don't think I've seen a non-COVID patient in several weeks, which is kind of scary to think about in hindsight, but I almost feel safer at work, which is for now, because I know these people are positive and I am able to have all of my equipment, versus if I'm at the store or outside and somebody comes and talk, like I don't know the history of that person like I do know the history of somebody at work. So in a patient room, when it's just me and a patient, it's intense, but I'm not as scared as I am outside of the hospital, which is, I guess, interesting.
Yeah. What kind of care are you offering folks who are COVID positive and under your care?
So unfortunately, you don't come to the ICU if you're well. So these people are very sick. A lot of people are with us because they're having a lot of trouble oxygenating. So a lot of times that's leading to, breathing tubes becoming on a ventilator. I guess it's called life support. I haven't heard that term in a long time, but it really, it is like full life support. So we're trying to make sure we can keep these patients oxygenated. You hear in the news about proning, which is something that we do to increase oxygenation, and we rotate these patients onto their bellies and have them lay like on their belly with a ventilator, which is kind of scary, but we're doing things like that. I feel like it changes every day, making sure, just trying these trial drugs, a lot of different meds, monitoring, blood pressures and other signs of further complications of COVID, like cardiac stuff. So it's been very busy for sure, but
yeah. What's the intensity like for you? Are you just kind of in work mode? Does it come out later? What's it like for you?
To me, just because I'm still like a baby nurse, everything can seem kind of intense for me that I haven't, something might be like a big deal to me that other people have seen before. But on a Zoom call with some of my coworkers, we were talking about how, I might be the youngest nurse on the unit, but even our oldest nurse who's been there for 40 years, this is still new to her too. So, like we're both kind of adjusting the same way, which made me feel a little bit better that, we're all kind of becoming immersed in this. But I think the hardest part, the physical part of it is hard. The being busy, having so many, like a lot of work to do for these patients, but I think a lot of it is just like the emotional, overwhelming stuff for me. And that's with or without COVID, with really sick people. But they cannot have visitors anymore, so we're doing Zoom FaceTime calls with people saying goodbye to their loved one. It's just very emotionally intense. And just as me, I think about my own family and I think about people I care about, and that's kind of like a shell shock for me too. Some of like the hardest things you have to do are you're with somebody who is saying goodbye to their family before they get a breathing tube because they might not come off. That can be very overwhelming, but also I keep trying to be like, I get to be the one that gets to be with them in this like very important moment. Like I can't control the path of their course of illness, but I can control what I can provide for them. And that's just kind of what I have to keep telling myself, because I'm not God. Our physicians aren't God. I'm not a physician. I can only do so much, but I think emotionally it's been tough. And then coming home, a lot of times you come home from work and not everybody knows exactly what your day's been like, but my job's all over the news now. So people call and they want updates, and they, so it's just kind of like a 24/7 thing. And it's hard to say no to people like, hey, like I can't talk about this right now. I was just in it for 13 hours and like I need a break, without seeming cold, but also needing like time to decompress too. So I think the biggest thing has been like an emotional overwhelm.
Well, and I know that I was just one more person asking if you could.
No, that's I knew that when I said that. I was like, oh great, I'm gonna sound like I'm not. I'm like, no, I'm not. No,
I think that hearing from you is a gift for our church family, for folks to have some insight onto what it's like in that stage for folks, and to continue to see that the work of nurses is ministry in a time like this, and any time, but it's particularly vivid right now. So, and I don't, and if you're not ready to talk about it, we don't have to. But I wonder if you've experienced death and losing patients at all, or what that's like for you.
Yeah, no, let's talk about it. It's important. I know, especially in this career, death is inevitable. And a lot of people, one of my preceptors once told me, somebody's going to come into the ICU and they're going to live or die regardless. Like, how their course was going to go is not going to be like decided by you, and that's something I have to hold on to, because you can't control how people are outside of your unit, and what their health is like. And I am a very anxious person. I've been anxious my whole entire life. And then I'm like, Matt, why did I become an ICU nurse? Like, whatever, pushing the limits. But, so I think I'm trained to think worst case scenario. And to a lot of people, worst case scenario is death. But seeing the things that you see, a lot of times, sometimes the worst case scenario can be, without sounding completely morbid, like keeping somebody alive to avoid death. And I've seen death become a very peaceful offering for a lot of people. And there's been a lot of tragic death in people that you can say like weren't supposed to die. But in hindsight, aren't we all supposed to die at some point? And, some people's journeys are very different than others, but I, as a nurse, but also, I'm a nurse, but I'm Emily, I'm a Christian, I'm a human, and I have to believe, like, for my sanity, and I think this is how faith just kind of has to guide me through this life, is there is something so much more than here in this room, in this patient, that I can't provide for somebody, and sometimes, like, just because somebody dies and their heart stops and their life ends, like, that doesn't mean there isn't more for them outside of that. And that can be so much more peaceful, so much more relieving than anything that could happen here, and that's how I have to think about a lot of things. A lot of people in the ICU they die with or without COVID. And it's hard and it's traumatic, but also it's hard to keep somebody alive because that can be traumatic too. So it's kind of I don't know if I danced around that question or answered it, but it's a very emotional thing, but also a very real thing. And I don't want people to be afraid to talk about death, because I feel like that's a very like taboo thing that we're experiencing now with all these people dying. But it happens and it's real. And I think one of the best things I can do as a nurse is, help somebody die peacefully and the way they should be comfortable. I don't know if I answered that question.
Yeah, that was a real gift. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no.
And I think, you're such a nurse, and I mean that. I have a deep love for healthcare providers, nurses in particular, because I think that you're in a position to care for people with compassion and with the truth.
I have to be truthful, or I struggle sometimes being too blunt to, like friends or family, where's my filter? But also part of me is like, if I don't say it, nobody else is going to, and you are entitled to know exactly what might happen to you. That's what I would want. That's what I want somebody to tell me for my family.
Yeah.
And I used to say this sometimes, like my tongue would tickle if I didn't say what I needed to say, but I can't stand the thought of people not knowing what they need to know,
Yeah. Well, and I think nurses and the church are called to face the reality of death and to offer compassion in the midst of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of what I love about nurses, and part of why I wanted to ask that question, because
Yeah.
if the church can't talk about death, then we must not really believe what we talk about in the first place.
Right. And that's kind of what I have to take and run with for myself, because we talk about a lot of these things. It's very much our, as a Christian's reality too. You know, we don't dance around that. So we need to live it, right? Like, we need to live what we say. And sometimes I'm like, man, am I serving the way I'm supposed to? Like, is this what somebody's, like, is this the way somebody envisions me serving them as a nurse, as a Christian? But I'm also like, I mean, I might not be perfect textbook, but I'm also trying very hard to be real. And I think there's a big difference in that. So.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
One more question that's is how is this, you've already talked about how your faith is a part of how you occupy this space. I guess a different way to ask the question for you personally is, how are things between you and God right now?
You know, I've never been on bad terms with God. There's a term, you know, faith over fear. And I cling to that like cling wrap. I mean, you know, I, again, have kind of mentioned this, if I'm anxious, you know, I have to, just for my sanity, for my well-being, I have to know and believe that there is something that is 10 times more than I'll ever be. And that's kind of how I can sleep at night, is that I'm not the one that's in control, which is nice. But hold on, I have it in my phone. This was also my like Bible verse, I guess, when I got confirmed. We can talk about that. And that's kind of what I kind of just kind of, to me, sums me up in a phrase. It's Philippians 4:6. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And I just feel like that's what I have to do in a nutshell. Like, I can know these things, I can feel these things, and at the end of the day, I can leave work and do the best I can, and then that's up to somebody else. And that's kind of what I have to do, or I wouldn't be able to do anything. So God and I are okay. We've always been okay. We always will be okay. I know he's pretty busy right now, and he doesn't have to prioritize me because I'll still be here. But, you know, it's tough. It's hard. A lot of people can look at situations and be like, man, this person is so sick. How is there a God that could make something so terrible happen? I don't know if it works like that. But, you know, I don't think God snapped his fingers and said, Corona, let's do it. I don't think it works that way. You let me know, Pastor Drew, but I don't know if you ever learned that. And I think that, you know, in order to keep doing what we're doing, God and I have to be okay, or I won't be able to keep doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's been all right. It's hard. Everybody, you know, talks about how they're praying for nurses and healthcare providers and everybody who's out there. And I think that that's good, because sometimes it's hard to pray for yourself. And yeah, it's hard to pray for yourself. But I know at the end of the day, somebody out there is doing what I need them to do for me. So.
Yeah. Well, this has been a big gift of your time to be willing to, on your off hours, to care for some other people by telling your story, and I'm really grateful for it. As we all continue to pray, I'm going to ask everybody that sees this to please pray for you specifically in your unit and your people, and your protection, so that you can be the nurse that you're called to be. Do you mind if I offer a prayer now while we're talking?
Please.
Okay,
please.
Let's pray. Almighty God, I am so thankful for Emily, for her time today, and for your call on her life, for you creating her to be this nurse who knows anxiety but faces it, who sees sickness but ministers to it, who acknowledges death and confronts it with this hope that comes through her words, that you are so much bigger than this, and that we really can depend on you, and that you really do have this in your hands, that the pain does not come from you, but at all times our hope does come from you, and is a very real hope that in the end that you have us in life or in death. And so we are clinging to this like cling wrap, and ask that your Holy Spirit clings to Emily and her coworkers, her patients, the physicians, administrators, janitors, everybody who works in the places where this particular threat is showing up. Send your Spirit to cling to them like cling wrap, wrap them up in armor, in the armor of God. Keep them safe, and reunite us when it is safe, so that this church can give Emily a big hug and thank her for her ministry, and bring us all to the day where that is beyond death, where we will be reunited, even with those that have gone before us, in your healing embrace. We thank you and we praise you, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You're awesome. I hadn't got to hang out much with you, and then we got to hang out at a party, which was nice, close quarters, and having a great time together. And then I've gotten to see you on the bike and talk to you a little bit through this, and so I'm thankful that I've gotten to know you.
Me
and
too.
that I was able to talk with you today and offer some of your story to our people. We're with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Take care of yourself, and we'll keep in touch.
You too. Yep, for sure.
Right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.